the wonderful world of. Want to welcome you back to the wonderful world of empathy circles and are building a culture of empathy. And want to make sure that you know that we're recording these sessions for educational and promotional purposes. And we'd like to do a round of short check-ins, starting with the participants. And so I'd like to start with you, Jaya, if that's okay, and then move on to Anjali.
So I am here and I'm in the now. And I'm glad to be here with all of you and looking forward to meeting in the small groups and, working on empathy. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I might just mention.
I should have said if you could share in 30 seconds any questions, comments, how is your buddy call, or any report from a circle that you facilitated. So
okay.
Anjali and then Johnny.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. So I'm here again for empathy, and I am looking forward to learning a lot today. So that's all I have.
Great. So then Johnny and then Jeng.
Hello. My name is Johnny, and I'm here to help myself become a better peer supporter.
Wonderful. And then Jeng and then Floyd.
Hello everyone again. I'm fine. Yes, getting cold. My body call is fantastic. So I'm happy to be here again. Thank you.
Wonderful. And then Floyd and then Garen.
Well, good morning, everybody. Let's see. I had a really wonderful buddy call. Went really, really well. It sort of it was an extended half-hour event. So I'm happy to be here with everybody. Good morning.
Wonderful. And Garen and then Tiffany. Well, I'm sorry, Garen. And then Kevin.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am Garen and I am connected from Amsterdam. And now I want to learn more about empathy and the empathy circles. This is the second time that I make part of this session.
Wonderful. Kevin and then Dwayne.
I'm very excited to be here again. I was able to have 2 buddy calls. Both of them were wonderful, and I was able to do a somewhat family circle, family buddy conversation as well, which is it was different. Because my wife is listening in from time to time, so she's like, "No, you're not doing it right," but it was a great time.
Terrific. And Dwayne and then BJ.
Hi, I'm here with in New Orleans with the next to the New Orleans Superdome with the historical Black colleges of Grambling and Southern playing in the Bayou Classic. I'll be attending later. I had a really enjoyable call with Larry earlier. It reinforced what I already knew, that we have a lot in common, a lot to build upon. And I'm excited about, over 30 seconds. I'm excited about the opportunity to learn more about other members of this team and to grow from this experience. Thank you.
Terrific. So BJ and then Jana.
Greetings, everyone. I have not had an opportunity to do a buddy call, but I'm just excited to be here and looking forward to learning new things.
Great. So Jana and then Mira.
Hi, yeah, I did the buddy call and it was lovely with Kathy and I was actually able to get together 3 friends and we did an empathy circle. And we did a half an hour where we actually did the practice, and the preliminary was long, and afterwards we talked about empathy. Thank you.
Wonderful. And then
Hi.
People are jumping around.
No,
Krista?
I changed my name. I'm on my
Oh,
daughter's old
Krista, and
computer.
then Payal? Is that right? Mhm. Krista?
Hi. I was horizontal yesterday. I was quite ill. So I'm sorry, Trey. I really would have loved to speak with you. So feeling a little vulnerable in traveling with family who ended up being in the hospital when we're here. So I'm here partly. My heart is a little bit distracted. So just thought I'd name that.
No, glad you're here and better. Krista, and then Payal, and then Sarika?
So I'm just here, and I haven't been able to do the buddy call. We had time zone issues, but I'm looking forward to what.
Good. So Sarika, and then Dina, sorry.
Hi, I'm Sarika, and I'm looking forward to today's Empathy Circle. And I also did not have a chance to have a buddy call.
Okay, glad you're here. Dina, and then Shauna?
Okay, good afternoon. Well, it is here in Texas. I'm in Dallas, Texas. Glad to be here back for the second one. Pal and I emailed back and forth at that time zone, 11 hours. It's like, man, we didn't get it together. But we were trying. So glad to be back.
Okay, great. Shauna, and then Trey?
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be back. This is my second time. I haven't had the opportunity to have a buddy call, but I'm looking forward to having one. I'm also looking forward to being here and just sharpen the skill of empathy. So good to be here again.
Wonderful. Shauna, and then Trey, then Laura?
Hey everyone, it's good to be back. Yes, as Krista said, we were unable to have our buddy call, but I managed to find a friend that I was able to do some deep listening with. So still got some practice in there. Yes, and I look forward to what is to come. Another thing, one quick thing is that I was finding it difficult. I still find it, I am not able to join the WhatsApp and the LinkedIn. It's not navigating away from the tab. I don't know if that's happened for anybody else. But
okay, duly noted. Thank you. Laura, and then Deirdre.
Hi, I'm Laura. I wasn't able to do the buddy call. To tell you the truth, I forgot all about it. I just found the email this morning. But I did do the 1 hour of sitting with my husband and empathetically listening to him. And that brought up a lot of stuff that he wanted to talk about, which was great.
Terrific. Deirdre, and then Vera.
Well, as you know, Ralph, I was able to have my buddy call, and it was a wonderful experience. I was struck by how we just got to know each other. Maybe we didn't practice the circle in the way that we might in this context, but I found it hilarious that he reflected back to me that it was a bit of a table of contents of my life. So, okay, that's how I talk now. I know, but thank you. I'm looking forward to today and a little respite from caregiving.
Wonderful. You're jumping all over. So it's Vera, and then Joyce.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here with all of you. Had an awesome buddy call with Maria Breezy. We had a great time. And then I also tried to do the empathy one-on-one with my husband, and that didn't work out so well. It was quite interesting. Yeah, and I heard a WhatsApp. I don't think I'm on the WhatsApp. So if someone can send me the link to that, please. Thank you.
Okay, I think you're the last one, Joyce.
Tiffany and Floyd.
Well, Tiffany's a trainee, and I think I did call on Floyd. Did I, Floyd? Yep.
Yeah.
Yours, please.
So yeah, this past week I had a nice buddy call, and here today just hoping to learn more about how to facilitate an empathy circle.
All right, terrific. Did I leave anybody out of the participants, non-trainers or trainees? Oh, wow, terrific. You're all jumping over the place. Oh, what, Tiffany, I thought you were a trainee. No? Well, if you're not a
Well, go ahead, and we're doing really good on time.
Go,
So if you
go.
want to do the trainees next, Ralph,
Okay,
that'd be
so
great.
Tiffany, go ahead.
Everybody. So this week I did a buddy call with Kathy. As always, it's a pleasure. Probably did more laughing than anything. My only question, I suppose, for these trainings, because sometimes when we go to our individual rooms, people will say things like, this is really not a good time, or I have a lot going on. And I just wanted to know if you're not a trainer, obviously, or trainee, sometimes is it best like not to, I don't want to say not come, but would it be best to skip something if you can't be fully present? I'm asking for myself or for anyone else.
Edwin, I'm going to let you field that.
We have, after this, we have the feedback, and Anne will be doing that. So maybe she'll make a note of that.
I didn't catch it.
Good.
So maybe if someone else can catch it, pick that one up. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'm looking for other trainees here. Payal, are you a trainee?
No, I'm a participant.
Okay. Jaya, are you a observer, trainee?
I am a participant, observer, trainee, yes.
All right. So we're going to go up to Kathy. Do you want to feed in?
Oh, yes, yes. I had 2 empathy calls this week, and I loved both of them. And I loved, so Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I got empathy. And if anybody ever needs a partner, you can feel free to reach out to me, because the more empathy I get, the better person I am. So
Terrific. So Gary, you're a trainee. Do you want to check in?
Yeah, I'm just happy that I'm here this week. I missed last week. I was in the hospital. Have a lot of catching up to do on. So I'm just as eager as everybody else is.
Oh, wonderful. I think then if we have time, Edwin, I'll move on to the trainers. Yes?
Yep, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we weren't sure. We have a large cohort. We weren't sure how fast this would go. So we're starting with the trainees, I mean, with the participants and then the trainees. And yeah, so it looks like we have enough time. Go ahead.
Okay, Celine and then Rasha.
I am very happy to be here, and I was not able to connect with my empathy buddy, unfortunately, and I am ready to go for today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Rasha and then Bill.
Hello, everyone. My empathy buddy was Edwin. We got on call, I think, pretty early today, so I would consider that a buddy call. And then I also did an empathy circle with, I think, around 12 to 15 people. Michelle was a part of it as well. She co-facilitated with me, and we had a wonderful discussion on anxiety with a group of people, and it was lovely. Yeah, that's from me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Bill and then Michelle.
Yeah, as you kind of said in my earlier check-in, most of you weren't there. I've been dealing with a lot of problems in the house and water everywhere, and I have 3 million towels that I'm drying. But I would say that in answer to Tiffany's question, at least mine, is that it's a personal decision as to whether what your capacity is. But I do find that many people who come and don't feel fully present, as somebody said in the chat, Kathy did, I think, they feel better afterwards. So it's it's to just basically check in with yourself and then make that decision. But a lot of times you feel better and more present. That's it. Thanks.
All right. Michelle and then Larry.
thanks, Wolf. We someone really unfortunate news. So we've lost Robin Howard from the cohort. She had a personal situation that's taken her away from it. So I didn't get to have my empathy buddy call. And yeah, so that was really, it was really pity. And I had a really gorgeous midweek just of empathy with the Empathy Matters community. It just reinforces every single time. It's like it always shows up just when you need it. It's beautiful. So that was the week. Thanks, Pasha.
Thank you. Well. Thank you, Larry, and then Lou.
Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here. And as Michelle was sharing earlier, being present in the present moment. I think Paya or Jaya was saying that to be in the present moment, this is the gift. These empathy circles give us all the opportunity to practice being in the now. Had a phenomenal buddy call this morning with Dwayne. I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you.
You, Lou, and then Melissa.
Thanks, Ralph. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I wasn't here last week, and I'm not going to be able to be here every session, but I'm going to drop in when I can. I'm really happy to be here and very excited to see all of you, and grateful that you're taking the time to learn about this practice and to help create a more empathic world. And I am reminded over and over again in my relationships just the power of listening. The power of being able to just be present and really listen to someone. It has a huge impact. So thanks for being here.
Wonderful. Melissa, and then Anne.
Thank you, Floyd. Yeah, I am a trainee. And anyway, so it was a wonderful week. And I did have a buddy call with Heather. It was quite interesting. Anyway, so, and I ate a lot of pumpkin pie. So I am happy to be back and happy to be here. And welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Wonderful. Anne, and then Edwin.
So for me this week, I've been in, I think, 4 empathy circles, and it's just quite wonderful to experience, even with completely new people and a new, just trying to do something quite different. I noticed that my body was calming, my processes got clearer and better, and that's what the empathy circle process does. And to be able to see and hear from participants that they leave more energized than they come. So that'll do for me.
Wonderful.
And thank you, Ralph.
Welcome. Edwin, and then me.
Yeah, I'm here in the background. I feel like the Wizard of Oz. There's all these breakout rooms. While you're all talking, I'm organizing the breakout rooms for feel a little, I got a lot of that. It's a big group and it's a lot to sort of manage. So that's kind of where I am. Thanks, Ralph.
Oh, we love you. Me, I'm glad to be here as my long COVID subsides, I think, although this may be it. Above all the altars of the Plum Village Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh's monasteries, above the altars is this one plaque, and it says, "This is it." So I keep telling myself, this is it. So I'd like to pass the baton on to Anne.
Okay, so there are a couple of questions that I've gathered from the feedback that people have been giving now. And one of them was about if someone's attention is divided, should they still participate? And I would say yes, because the process of doing it and the clearly defined roles and the way it slows down our communication and gives space, I think helps anyone to kind of regulate and be more in the present. So that would be my answer to that one. And a question about timing. Well, you'll be practicing this when you're in the breakout rooms. what do people use? I personally use my phone. There's a timer function in it, which you can set to however many minutes and seconds you want, and then choose a quiet sound for it to play. And then I always will indicate by holding out the back of my phone. I'm sure you've seen this, or some people will hold up a piece of paper with their sign saying time. And other people I noticed said they use a Google timer, any sort of timer that you can set minutes, and preferably minutes and seconds to. There was a question about whose responsibility is it really to reach out for your buddy call? Well, since the question was asked, perhaps you've had the email from Edwin. In the assignments, there is a link to the process of having an empathy buddy call. So I'd refer you to that primarily, but I would encourage you both to see it as your job to reach out to the other person. So if we all take full responsibility, that helps us all. So it isn't one or other person's sole responsibility, it's both people in the pair. So we're often in different time zones, so I do recommend reaching out early in the week so that it's possible to deal with the time zone differences. There was a question about if people are ever mandated, they have to attend an empathy circle. Well, certainly in my experience, it's not usual, but I have been in one situation where a team were running a weekend session for a team of people, and so they were expected to come. But generally people come with complete consent to do it. There's no obligation for people to be there if they don't want to. But I think if people are having to come and it isn't what they would necessarily choose, try to be flexible, try to be a bit flexible and encourage them to stick with the process. And as they participate a little, it's quite often the case that they begin to feel and see benefits. So persevere, I think. Anybody want to add anything to that? Other trainers might have experience about people being mandated to go to an empathy circle.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think it's really important, as you said, Ann, to make sure that it's voluntary. And then something I use a lot when people talk about have any kind of resistance to participating, I say, well, it's an experiment. Are you willing to experiment for just a little bit and see how it feels? Because it is different. Yeah.
I'm not going to, there was a question about managing your own somatic response during the empathy cafe. Well, personally, I'm not an expert, but I would suggest that you do notice, do allow yourself to notice how you are feeling in your body during the circle. And you have more time to do that when you're the silent listener, and use that time to kind of self-regulate yourself, to notice if you're tense and to try to relax your body, allow yourself to kind of be comfortable where you're sitting and allow yourself to notice yourself breathing. But I think that the slowing down helps. And I think that there is space for you to do it. Maybe you'll feel more tense when you're actually in the role of the active listener, but it isn't for a long time. So I've lost my list. Hold on a moment. I think some of these are going to be answered as we go through the training and as you get some practice in delivering the method, because I think in several of the questions, I think if you're very clear about describing the process and doing that calmly and slowly if necessary, the more that people understand the process and you've laid it out, then the easier it will be to manage situations that come up. But there was a question too about inclusivity, really, about people who, because people turn off their put themselves on mute. Getting some feedback, thank you. So if people are not speakers of English as their first language, then quite often all that's really needed is to slow down, be prepared to go a little bit more slowly, and to speak in small chunks. As a facilitator, what I would do would be, if there's difficulty in giving the feedback because of language understanding, I would myself, when it was my turn, choose that person to be my active listener, and then that will give me a chance to model going a bit more slowly, breaking it down into chunks, and if necessary, rephrasing, and just finding that, kind of finding the sweet point. It's amazing how much people can do, but definitely slowing down the rate at which you're talking is often the key. Cameras, another one about if people are only able to participate on a telephone, then it can make it difficult, more difficult, because you can't see the participant. But if you're working on just the mobile phone and you don't have Wi-Fi, then it tends to use a lot of bandwidth or data. So people do need to have their camera off in some circumstances, not all. So if someone's on Wi-Fi, you can encourage them to have their camera on, or certainly if they could have their camera on when they're the active listener or when they're the speaker, and point out that it's much easier to communicate when we can see each other, and it's easier to empathize in those circumstances. If a participant is having trouble with the signal, just turning off the camera can help to be able to hear them. The sound will come across, the audio will be better if the camera's not also being used. And sometimes we will turn off, everybody will turn off their camera when it's that person's time to speak, if they've got really poor signal. I think I've spoken for more than the time, so please have a look in the feedback questions. We will be putting answers in there, so you can look them up, and ask in your breakout rooms if you've got questions, please. So over to, who is it I'm passing to, please? Larry.
Thank you, Ann. Yeah, I like that. Slow down, take that breath so that we can be relaxed and enjoy being in this state of empathy, relaxing, enjoying this. So I'm going to go over what we're going to do in the breakout room. Just a brief description of what we're going to do next, and it'll help us all to relax. So we'll go into our breakout rooms to give you each time to practice facilitating a mini empathy circle. The context is that you are facilitating an empathy circle with people who are not familiar with the practice. So participant 1 facilitates a mini empathy circle, introduces the how-to practice, selects the topic, which is suggested. What are your thoughts and concerns about being an empathy circle facilitator? Or you could always talk about whatever's alive in you. We're recommending, according to the scripts, we're recommending a 3-minute time. That might change. And the facilitator is the first listener. The facilitator volunteers to be the first listener in order to model the reflection. And then this will go around and we'll give feedback after each participant practices the how-to and a little mini empathy circle. We'll give feedback. We'll find out, how did that feel for you? And everyone else gives some feedback. What was it like? How did it feel? Then we'll repeat that for the second participant, the third participant, and on. And we try to hold back some time between 5 and maybe 10 minutes at the end so that everyone can share, how did this feel? What did it feel like playing the role of the facilitator in the empathy circle? Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to go into our breakout rooms. We have about an hour and a half for that. I've divided us into the breakout rooms, and some of the rooms will have just one trainer or trainee and 2 participants. So for the trainers who are in those groups, you divide the time in half, just a reminder. And I think we're all set. I'll send about a 10-minute heads up, 10 minutes before we close, and then we'll all come back into the full group. So the room 1 will be with Rasha facilitating, room 2, Bill, Celine, room 4, room 5 is Lou. We'll be I'll be with you in the wait room. So that's the room where people come through. If you get dropped out of the call, you'll come back to the wait room. And then Michelle will do room 6. Larry is room 7. Anne is room 8. Kathy is room 9. And Ralph is room 10. So here we go. See you in the rooms.
All right. So hi, BJ. Hi, Dwayne.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good morning, maybe?
Yeah, it's morning where I am. What time is it where you are, Dwayne?
It's afternoon. I'm in the same time zone as BJ.
Okay. So as Larry described, so what we're doing in this breakout is we're practicing how to introduce an empathy circle. What do you say to people when you bring them together and you're describing the process for them? So you'll each have a chance to practice that. And then you'll also have a chance to practice facilitating an empathy circle, the topic of which is, what are your thoughts and concerns about facilitating empathy circles? So are there any questions about what we're doing together? No? Okay. So would one of you like to try doing an introduction? And just so you know, so the idea behind having you practice is everybody does it differently. Everybody introduces it differently. And so this is an opportunity for you to practice kind of finding the words that you would use to describe it. So the idea is, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's fine. Whatever it is fine. But the idea of just taking some time to try out, how will I do this? That's really what this is. So, yeah.
I've had a lot of opportunities. So, and that's why I'm, waiting.
Okay.
To give BJ a chance, because it's easy for me to volunteer and go first always. So.
How
Yeah,
are you
but if you
feeling?
already have experience, you can model it.
How
too,
are
you
you
know,
feeling, BJ?
Okay, I'll go on and go first. Okay.
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 Great. And just so you know, so I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes, because 5 minutes is a good amount of time. And it's not that you have to be done by then, but it'll be interesting to see where you are in 5 minutes. Okay. So I'm just as a reference, I'm going to do that. All right. Is that okay with you? Okay. All right. So go ahead.
Hey, I want to thank everyone for being here. This is one Empathy Listening Circles facilitation training. So what I'd like to say is I'm glad you're here, and it's very informal. One thing that we're going to do is everyone will have an opportunity to speak. Okay, let me back up. First, we have what is called the speaker. The speaker was normally the facilitator will speak first and state what's alive for them, or either whatever the topic is about. Then there will be an active listener. The active listener cannot speak when the speaker is speaking. Basically, the active listener will restate what they hear the speaker say, not add their own opinion or assumptions to whatever is being said. That also applies to the two silent listeners. There will be two silent listeners as well. So each person will have an opportunity to speak and state what's alive for them. And during that time, it's just best to not make assumptions and just restate what you hear that person say. And when you speak, you will have 3 minutes, but if you could just maybe speak for 1 minute so that the listener can really hear what you're saying. And that way they'll be able to properly restate what they heard you say. In addition to that, there is generally a time limit, which is 5 minutes, and sometime it can go over. It's also important to pause during your speech. Any questions?
Great. And actually something I forgot to say was that the rest of us should listen to her as though we don't know anything about empathy circles, and then we can ask her questions, you know, as a kind of as a way of giving feedback. So let's see, do I have any questions? So I do have a question. So you said something about 3 minutes and something about 5 minutes. Is it 3 minutes or 5 minutes for the speaker?
Generally it's 3 minutes for the speaker, but it can go 5.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Dwayne?
I have a question. As one of the listeners who's a passive listener, am I allowed to ask questions?
The listeners, active or silent listeners, cannot ask questions or give advice because they will have an opportunity to speak. And during that time, they can talk about whatever's alive for them or whatever comments they may have.
Thank you.
Okay. Trying to think if I have any other questions. I don't think I do. Okay, so anyone else have any other questions? So how did that feel, BJ?
There's something that I missed because I was working on this yesterday and there was something that I did not discuss.
Okay.
And that was an order. Oh, I know what it was. Well, I think Dwayne kind of alluded to it. Guidelines, not necessarily ground rules. I think is one thing that was discussed on yesterday, and that is they're not necessarily any ground rules or guidelines, but not speaking out of turn. You know, if the speaker is speaking and you are an active listener or silent listener, do not interrupt them. It might be helpful to not interrupt them. If you don't agree with them, you just have an opportunity to speak when it's your time to speak.
Okay. Great. Would you like feedback from people?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's start with things that we think that she did really well. So I'll start. I can say I really liked watching you kind of work through what you wanted to say and figuring out what you wanted to say and then saying it. It just felt very kind of real and authentic, and I got a pretty good idea, not a completely clear idea from what you described, but a pretty good idea from what you described. Anyone else?
I thought you did a really good job, and especially for your, first time of facilitating a group. I like the fact that you prepared, and it was really easy to understand your instructions.
Thank you.
Edwin?
Yeah, it was, I enjoyed it. The sort of the groundedness, kind of this is how it is, and then just, kind of a bit forceful, kind of holding the space. I thought, yeah, I kind of enjoyed that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any suggestions for how to strengthen what she did? Edwin?
I did want to mention the 3 or 5 minutes. We're doing 3 minutes because it's a shorter period of time. Like generally when we do like a full 2-hour empathy circle, we have 5 minutes, per person. And so it's not 3 or 5, it's like we're doing 3 minutes here because it's a compressed circle. We're trying to get as much experience. So it's, yeah, so I just kind of wanted to kind of clarify that piece.
Thank you.
I actually think that you're going to be fine in terms of you're already, your presentation I thought was really well, and it encourages me to actually take time to prepare. So thank you for modeling the good facilitation behavior, because it was actually good for me to see and watch you and know you were prepared. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
And the one thing I will say is I think it's a good idea to include a little bit about what you will do as a facilitator. So you described the speaker and the listener, the reflector roles and the silent listener roles. And so saying a little bit about, that you might ask people to pause if they're going on too long, or if someone forgets, if a listener forgets and starts asking questions or giving their opinion, that you'll remind them what their role is. I think that always, when I include those things, it makes it less shocking for the people when I do it, and it makes me feel more comfortable doing it because I've said, that I might do those things. Makes me feel more comfortable doing that. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So what I heard you say as the facilitator, one of my roles will be to make sure that you pause. My other role will be make sure that I'm keeping time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
from time to time I may use something to reflect that, and I'll be the first to speak. So those are the things that I should include.
Yeah, and that if somebody's forgetting their role, like if a silent listener is forgetting their role and they ask a question, or if the reflector is forgetting that they're not supposed to give advice or give their opinion, that you might remind them what their role is.
And
okay.
I might add, you'll be the first listener, and the reason for being the first listener is the facilitator. Like, we don't know what's happening here. We haven't done this before. And by being the first listener, you can model the listening to others. So people will see you listening. And then when you become the speaker, you can kind of, speak to people and help them to be able to listen. So being the first listener. And also there is that PDF that was sent out.
Yes.
You can also just send that PDF to everyone, just read through it. There's a speaker tip, active listener tips. So you kind of give them a heads up too, just as a little tip there.
Sorry, I'm laughing because we were talking about that yesterday. Thank you.
So thanks, BJ. It was a great job.
Thank
Anything else you want from the group?
No, it's I actually facilitated a group with my family over the holidays, and it was real interesting because you know we have all race in our family, and there were Caucasians that were there as well as Indian people at the family get together. So we started talking about what was alive for them, and it was really interesting, very interesting. So it was good to just see how they interacted and how their spirits came together to show empathy for each other. It was interesting.
Cool. That sounds great. Okay, so Dwayne, you want to take a turn?
Sure. And I welcome the opportunity. I need more practice. So I'd like to welcome you all for our Empathy Circle today. I'm going to facilitate the group, but I'll also be a participant. The way the Empathy Circle is structured is there'll be a speaker. The first person, I will be the first listener. So there'll be a speaker, and the speaker will have a chance to speak for 3 minutes, and I will listen and reflect back. When the person who's speaking, I will encourage them to pause intermittently so that I will have a chance to reflect back to them. Though the other people in the group will be silent listeners. The people who are the silent listeners are encouraged to just listen. And I know often we have an urge to contribute something, want to jump into a conversation. But for this particular exercise and experience, everyone is, the silent listeners are required to just, be silent. And then when their turn comes around, they'll have an opportunity to speak to what's on their mind, or if they heard something during a discussion, they can start from that point. The other thing I think is important, as a facilitator, I'm going to sometimes interject into the conversation. I might have to ask someone to, make sure your phone's on silent or something of that nature. If one of the silent listeners starts to speak, I might encourage them to, I will encourage them to wait until it's their turn. Also, if the person who's speaking is going on and doesn't pause, I may interject to ask him to pause and give the other person a chance to reflect back on what they're speaking. Let's see. We usually allow for 2 hours for this process. There'll be like an hour and a half that will be in the circle, and everyone will get a turn. And it's really important that we pick different people at different times so that everyone has a chance to participate. So we'll go around the first time, and we want to make sure that people who haven't spoken have a chance to speak and listen. And then the second round, really, you can pick, whoever you want to at that time. And then after we finish the conversation, we'll come back together in a larger group, and there'll be a little bit of debrief, and everyone will have a few seconds to share, what the experience is like for them. Thank you. I'm ready for feedback. I know I missed some.
Okay. Well, let's start with, so how did it feel to you, Dwayne? What do you think you did well? And
it felt better than the first time I did it last week. But I also, again, I'm reminded from, BJ's presentation, the importance of really taking some time to prepare. And so far, I haven't taken the time to prepare and practice going through the information. And so I know that I have a general idea of what it's like to facilitate, but I also think it's important to, in a sense, follow the description that Edwin is prepared, because it's a really simple guide for facilitating. So,
Okay. What do others think Dwayne did well, or what or questions you have about the circle? You know, because we didn't do that piece of if you didn't know anything and you were listening to his description, what would you have a question about how this process works?
yes, does anyone have any questions for me?
So I have one. So I was a little confused about the listener. You said that you would be the listener, but so are you being the listener all the time, or how does it determine who's the listener?
Yes, actually, Luke, why am I calling you Larry? Luke. I would be the first listener, and what I left out is that I'll be the first listener, active listener, and then after the speaker has finished, they will pick the next person who's going to be the speaker, and they would become the listener. And then we would move around the circle, and everyone would have an opportunity to speak.
I'm kind of confused by that. So you're saying that the first speaker, they will choose a second listener, they'll speak to you, and then they'll choose someone else too?
Edwin, actually, it's a little bit different. I would be the first speaker, active listener, and then the speaker, after they finish, they would become the active listener, and then they would pick the next speaker.
Okay, I guess I'll just follow along, see how it goes.
Okay. And the reason why I'm this first speaker is to give the other you all an opportunity to see what the practice of reflective listening is like. And then by practicing it, hopefully you'll see how the process works and you'll feel more comfortable when it's your turn.
Oh, great.
Okay. So BJ, do you have any questions for Dwayne?
No, I think he did well. I see where there's some things that I need to work on, but hearing you speak, Dwayne, I know there's some things that I need to add as far as the time limit and what that looks like. But other than that, I like that your voice is even keeled in tone. I wish my voice could be like that, because there are times when I'm speaking, if I get excited about something, my voice might change. It might go up or down. And I noticed that a lot of people, their voice is just even. So.
Thank you.
I don't know. I think it was fine.
Yeah, Dwayne, I thought your pace was really good. So you have a nice slow pace, you're describing it, and really lets people take in what you're saying. And I also thought you did a good job of being very specific and clear about the different roles, what people were supposed to do. There's a little bit of confusion there about the listener. So it's the with the exception of the first listener, which is, you were saying I was going to be the first listener, but normally the speaker picks the listener.
Yes.
And then the listener, when they're done listening, they become the speaker and they pick the next listener. So that's how that works in the circle.
Yeah, I thank you. And that's something I would need to do a better job of, is explaining that.
Yeah. What else did I think you did really well? Yeah, you're just warm. You're a warm guy, and so so I experienced you as being welcoming and warm and compassionate. Yeah, so and that's very inviting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. It's very warm and spacious. Like, oh, you got a lot of space. It's calm. I feel relaxed. So I feel like I'm in good hands. I felt like I had a good sense of that you had the role as facilitator, like you were really explaining the facilitator role and what you'll be doing really well. So
thank you.
Okay. Anyone have suggestions on ways to strengthen what he did?
To review the information that we have.
Okay.
I mean, actually review it, not just like a drive-by. I mean,
I will admit I did a couple drive-bys.
So one thing.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, BJ, I appreciate the way you articulate that.
One thing that I think is important is that to say that when you're the listener, the active listener, that you don't ask questions or give advice or your own opinion, because it's so common for people to do that. So I usually try to at least say what people commonly do that we're not doing, that you're really just reflecting back what you understand the person's trying to get across.
Yes.
So that'd be something I suggest.
Thank you.
Edwin, did you have anything?
That was it. Yeah.
Okay.
Covered.
All right. Anything, Dwayne, anything more you want from the group about your intro?
No, I appreciated the feedback, and I understand, like, I enjoy doing it because the more I do it, the more natural it feels. And so I welcome, I will take advantages of many opportunities that I have to both be a participant and also to help facilitate so I can learn and progress, and so it becomes really natural for me. So.
Yeah, and that's my experience too. The more I've done the process and the more times I've described it to people, the more I get good at it and the more it makes sense to me. So yeah, so just doing it a lot is a good thing to do. And yeah, when after you've introduced it a dozen times, you get a much better idea of what you want to do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because being in the group with you and Edwin, I feel like we're in the AP class. So because you both are the excellent models of how to present in a relaxed manner, and it's like second nature for you. It's a part of who you are, and so it's really good for me as a participant to have this experience.
Well, good, great. All right, so let's move on to the facilitation part. So each of you are going to take a turn facilitating. I guess we're coming back, Edwin, at 12 o'clock.
So
we have an hour. So that's 30 minutes apiece that you get to facilitate, to take turns facilitating. And we probably actually in that 30 minutes should have at least 5 minutes for feedback about or reflection on your practice. So 20 to 25 minutes of facilitating. And so I will, as the facilitator of this breakout, I will keep track of the 20 to 25 minutes. Whoever's taking the turn facilitating, it's your job to track the speaking turns, and facilitate the circle. And again, the topic of the circle is, what are your thoughts and concerns about being an Empathy Circle facilitator? So who would like to take a turn facilitating first?
I'm happy to go first.
Okay.
Do I need to reintroduce or just start from? Okay.
Yeah.
I will be the first speaker, and I'm going to ask for a volunteer. Excuse me, I'll be the first listener, and I'm going to ask for a volunteer for the first speaker. And the first speaker will have 5 minutes to speak.
Actually, we're doing 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. The first speaker will have 3 minutes to speak, and I'll reflect back to that speaker. And after the first speaker finishes, I'll ask you to become the active listener and to pick the next speaker. Okay, so Lou, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll be the first speaker. And I'm speaking to you.
Yes.
Okay, so my thoughts and concerns about an empathy circle facilitator. Yeah, I think, I've been doing this a long time, and facilitation is a complex and subtle process. But I think one of the great strengths of the empathy circle is that it has a structure to it. And so if you just hold on to the structure, it works a lot just by holding on to the structure. And the structure represents something that is concrete that you can hold on to as a facilitator.
Lou, appreciating what you said, and if I heard you correctly, you've been doing this a long time. And, you identified that this is a complex and subtle process. And one of the really great things about this process is the structure. And the structure provides a framework that is consistent. And so by holding on and remembering the structure of how this is done, it helps to, and no pun intended, facilitate the process.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, so I think understanding the structure and the benefits of it, how the structure works to actually create understanding and to create empathic presence, and to make sure that everyone has a chance to be heard. The way the structure does that is wonderful, and it's part of what one of the reasons why it's good to just follow the structure.
You emphasize the importance of the structure and in the sense, the magic of the structure, because it creates an opportunity for everyone to be heard, for people to share their feelings, and there's a certain magic to it. And if you simply follow it, it creates opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm realizing too that understanding how the structure works and how it supports mutual understanding, that's a lot of what I use when I'm working as a facilitator to respond to objections or to respond to difficulties that people are having. Being able to say, well, the reason we take turns is so that everybody gets a chance to be heard. That if you watch what happens in a normal conversation, some people will talk a lot, other people won't talk at all, and not everyone gets a chance to be heard. And so that's one of the reasons that we have time turn taking. And so that kind of explanation, like understanding how it works and being able to explain that, is part of what helps people understand the benefits of it.
It's really interesting the way you articulated this idea that again, there's a magic to the structure, and the structure can be used as a tool. The fact that people are listening and speaking, it can be used to illustrate the importance of people being heard and people having a chance to speak when you're working with participants who, in a particular empathy circle. And the structure of the process is what helps to illustrate the importance of these things.
Yeah, and as a facilitator, understanding that and being able to say it is what helps convince people to participate in it.
Yeah. And the important point being, as a facilitator and having an understanding of the power of the structure, is a useful tool in helping people to participate.
Yeah,
and that's the important thing.
Thank you. I feel completely heard.
Thank you. And now, Lou, you will pick the next the next speaker. Is that?
No, I think you're the next speaker.
Oh, I think that's right.
And you pick the next listener, right?
I become the next speaker, and I'll pick the next listener. So BJ, would you like to be next, my listener?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. And I'll reflect on the topic of, what my thoughts are and concerns about, being an empathy circle facilitator. For me, being a facilitator represents a really great opportunity to continue to contribute something positively to the world that I'm living in.
Right. I think what I heard you say, being an empathy circle facilitator would assist you in adding something to the universe that can be positive.
Yes. I've been retired for a number of years now. And one of the things that's challenging for me sometimes is to be involved and be active because I've had to go through a number of different surgeries over the years.
Okay, I think what I heard you say is that now that you're retired, you're finding a way to be engaged and to be involved in certain things. However, you've had some medical challenges throughout the years, which may or may not limit some of the things you want to do, I think is what I'm hearing.
Yes, and one of the amazing things that happened during the pandemic and the use of online communication tools has created an opportunity for me to be more active, to be more involved. And so for me, it's really exciting.
Okay, I think what I heard is that though we had the pandemic, in some ways it became a positive for you because you were able to connect more with different people and doing different things online. So it gave you a sense of being involved.
Yes. And, for me, I've been living my life on purpose for a while now. And a part of my journey is for the rest of my life, I'm interested in contributing something positively. I want to make a positive contribution to the world that I'm living in. Sometimes it'll be something small and hopefully working towards my major or large contribution.
Okay, I think what you said is that you tend to live your life on purpose. And with that comes some thoughts and feelings about your role in society and how you might give back and what your legacy might look back and the things that you are doing in your life today and going forward.
Yes, and the only thing I would change is I would say giving, because I think it's always important for me that for the rest of my life, I make it a point to do at least one thing for someone else every day of my life. And so that's part of how I make a contribution, but I'm also looking for opportunities beyond that to share kindness, to give.
Okay, I think what you said is that you believe in giving. And at this age and stage in your life, you want to have an impact on others as far as giving, but not just monetarily. You also want to give your time and your talents, is what I heard you say.
Yes, and it's important because for me, at this point in my life, I don't really need anything. I mean, in terms of, I have enough food, I have clothing, I have comfortable shelter, I have a positive support network around me. And so for me, the rest of my journey is about giving. And so facilitating empathy circles provides a great opportunity to give, to share, to, and also be a part of the conversation.
Okay, I think what I heard you say is that you've been blessed financially, spiritually, emotionally, with family and friends and a network of support in your life, and that giving back also for you means having an impact on the community and what that might look like as far as giving and having a legacy within the community.
Well, and additionally, it's really, for me, it starts with individual interaction, how I live my life on a daily basis, and extends into the community. But first and foremost, my responsibility is taking care of myself first so that I'm able to contribute on a different level.
I think you said self-care is important for you, because within taking care of yourself, you will then be in a position to help and take care of others.
Yes. Thank you, BJ. I feel fully heard.
Well, okay. Edwin, will you be my listener?
Yes, I'll listen.
Okay, it says we can talk about whatever's alive for us in addition to the empathy, right? Okay, so this is a little bit of both. Okay, so for me, my concerns about the empathy circle facilitation are if you're facilitating an empathy listening circle and the person that is speaking start to have some type of emotional breakdown, and you can restate what you hear them say, but they're still crying. You can restate what you hear them say, and they're still in that headspace of trauma. So what would that look like?
So
Is
I
that
hear
just
you. Oh,
restating? Is that just restating, or there are no breaks? There's no stopping, just keep going?
Yeah, so I'm hearing you have a sort of a question about what happens if someone breaks down in the circle and starts crying and feels traumatized, and you're wondering, what do you do with that? Do you just restate what they're saying, or what do you do? So you just sit with that question.
So I guess keeping going, to continue going would be the thing to do, because you have to at some point, I guess, move past the pain. That was just an experience that I had, and I was wondering about that as far as feedback.
Oh, so it sounds like you had that experience. You think, well, you just keep going and you move past the pain.
Yes. So with the Empathy Circle Facilitator, I think for me, I just need to figure out, because I really do believe that this is a global movement and it should be around the world in every aspect. Courts, especially the judges, oh my God, the judges need this. Not just the students, the teachers need it more than the students, because if a child parents have committed suicide and you're that teacher, 4 weeks later, that student is going to act out. You should have empathy. So.
Yeah, so you feel that this practice, sort of this mindset, should be everywhere in the courts and the schools, and just the whole world really needs it.
Yes, and I'm happy to be a part of it, and I just want to learn as much as I can learn and try to improve. And I know it starts with the facilitating and looking for feedback.
Yeah, you just want some feedback and you want to learn as much as you can. You're hearing some gratitude. There's some gratitude about just being able to take part in this.
Yes, and oftentimes, when you're a part of something or a training group, there's a right way and a wrong way. Well, with empathy circles, there is no right or wrong way. It's just, that's one of the things I like. There's no right or wrong way. There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, you like that there's no right or wrong answer in the empathy circle. In other practices, maybe there's a right way and the wrong way. With here, there's no wrong or right way. And you like that.
Yeah, and it puts people at ease because that lets them know that they're not being judged.
Yeah, not knowing that there's no right and wrong way, you feel comfortable because you know you're not being judged.
I feel heard.
Okay, then I'll speak to Lou.
Listening.
Yeah, I'm so curious about what BJ's family circle was like. That I'd really love to hear kind of more the nuts and bolts of what happened there. It sounded like there were tears, and sounds like it was very very interesting, meaningful circle.
So you're remembering what BJ said in the big room about having held a family circle, and then what she just shared about her question about tears makes you really curious about her family circle and how that went. You'd love to hear more about it.
And when I saw her sort of light up about the importance of empathy, it really made me light up too. It's like, oh yeah, somebody really gets it. Felt really good.
Yeah, well, when you saw her enthusiasm and saw her light up about the empathy process and the value she thinks it can contribute to the world, it really excited you. It really lit you up.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that resonance feels really good to you.
And because that's one thing I'm concerned about is people will be bored in the empathy circle. Like there's something, it's like, I have the same sort of attitude, like this is really foundational. This is really important. Doesn't everybody see this? And some people, it's like they don't somehow they don't see the bigger picture of what it represents. And it's like, why don't you see the bigger picture? This is really fundamental. If we can get people talking to each other and listening, it's so important. It's central to our well-being. And other people are like, oh, this is boring. You just reflect back the words. It's like, I'm bored.
So you're so happy to hear BJ expressing the strength of her conviction that this is important because you feel that too, and you feel it's so nice to be joined by someone else, to hear other people saying that it's important, and you have a fear that some people experience it as boring and they don't really get it. They don't get why it's important. And so you just are celebrating that somebody else gets it too.
Yeah. And the other thing is I wonder sometimes that maybe in the culture that there's a lot of pain that people have, and that in empathy circle, it starts opening the lid to that pain. And it's like people, it's like, oh, I don't want to go deal with the pain. So I'd rather go get entertained or go have a political battle or something, because that'll kind of cover up the pain. And somehow I think that there's something about pain in the culture that people maybe draw back, that there's a hint of it in the circle, and that, yeah, they want to avoid it.
Yeah, so something you think you've noticed is that there's a lot of pain in the culture, and something that happens in empathy circles is people start to feel safe, and that starts to bubble up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, and I want to say, so I think you expressed both a concern that people, when they feel that they want to put a lid on it to avoid it, and they do other things like entertain themselves or go have something to eat or have an argument with somebody as a way of avoiding the pain. And so that, it sounds like you're saying that's both a strength and a concern that you have.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. That was my.
Okay.
I just, excuse me, would like to interject that even though, we're timed for 3 minutes, the speaker still has time to finish their last thought. So we do allow for that flexibility.
Thanks, Dwayne. Okay. I'll go to BJ, if that's all right with you.
Okay.
Well, this is a really enlivening and energizing conversation for me too. First off, just witnessing people really listening to each other carefully and working hard to try to get one another. That's so inspiring to me. I see it so little in life that to sit and watch people do it always just fills me with kind of joy and a little bit of sadness that it doesn't happen more often in the wider world.
I think what you said is that you feel excitement, and it could also be joy and pain sometimes, sunshine and rain. No, but I think what you're saying is that you feel excited about the process, and to know that people are actually being heard, not just listened to, but they're actually being heard, and it makes you feel great.
Yeah, and it's not just people. It's like here in this circle, watching you listen to Dwayne and watching Edwin listen to you. It's like so beautiful to see people really paying attention to each other and working hard to understand each other.
I think within our group, what you feel and said is that we're paying attention to each other. We're actually hearing each other and listening to what is being said without
Yeah.
thinking of a comeback, just actively listening.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's much too rare out in the world. And yeah.
Yeah, it's rare. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thanks. Go ahead.
No, I heard you say that it's rare that people really listen to each other.
It's too rare. Right. I want to see it happen more often. So I wanted to say something about your question about when strong feelings come up. Because I think the Empathy Circle actually is a place where that can happen for the reasons that Edwin mentioned. People start to feel safe and they start to feel their feelings. And I think culturally, I don't know how Black culture responds to this, but I know in Western culture generally, people like feelings are not okay. People start to feel emotional and people don't want that to happen. They interrupt it, and the feelings should be welcomed. All feelings, anger, grief, sadness, happiness, I think the Empathy Circle, as a facilitator, I would want to welcome all feelings and just sit with them, just be with them.
I think what I heard you say is you're not really familiar with the African-American culture and what that looks like as far as empathy go, but you would hope that it's just like culture is really not an issue, that it's just more of just the process, I think is what I'm hearing you say.
Actually, I'm saying in Western culture generally, bad feelings are not welcome. In most families, if someone starts to cry or something, that people are stopping it. Oh, you're okay. You'll be okay. It's not that bad. Don't worry. That people are trying to fix it, as opposed to just letting people have their feelings and letting it come out, that's very healthy. That's part of the healing process.
I think what I heard you say in Western culture is healthy, that people are able to express themselves and get their feelings out.
I'm sorry. I was listening to the timer. Could you give me that reflection again?
I think what I heard you say in Western culture, all right, it's normally not a good thing for people to express themselves because it comes off as, oh, you're okay, just let it go, rather than having an opportunity to truly and genuinely express their feelings.
Yes. Yeah, that generally happens in Western culture. Yes. And I'm not sure if Black culture is different than that, like if feelings are more welcome or not. I don't know that. Yeah, thank you. I feel very heard. Oh, and sorry, my timer went off, which meant that Wayne's turn of facilitating is up. Yeah. So Wayne, do you have any reflection on how you did? How'd you feel about how you did?
I feel that I need a lot more practice. Just the initial instruction was not clear, and so I got to work on, the fact that when I start off as the active listener, and then I pick someone to speak, that person who's speaking becomes the active listener, and then they pick the next speaker. And I know this, but for some reason it didn't come out. So I need to practice that more, giving my instructions clearly.
Okay, great. Okay, any other feedback people want? I thought you did a great job facilitating. I thought you were very warm and welcoming. I thought maybe there might have, it felt like the first few turns went long, so I wasn't sure what was going on with the timer there. If you had set it for 5 minutes and forgot or whatever, but anyway, but then you started doing it fine with the timer. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's what happened.
Okay.
And then I made the adjustments, but what I did was I made a gradual adjustment because I didn't think it would be fair to give the next speaker less time. So I adjusted to like 3.5 to 4 minutes, and then eventually got around to 3.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any comments for Dwayne before BJ takes over?
I noticed the time. Oh, go ahead, BJ.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just thought everything went well.
Yeah, it was only the timing that I actually was tracking too. I was like, oh, it's going for almost 6 minutes here. It's like that was it. I was about to object, say, how come the facilitator gets so much time to talk and the others don't? You know, because that's the kind of stuff that happens in the real. These people, especially in the charged ones where we do like the political left and right, people are sensitive to, you know, equal time and stuff. So. Yeah, I mean, here it doesn't matter. People are pretty flexible, but otherwise it seemed very spacious. I felt very comfortable. It just felt great space for sharing. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
BJ, did you want to say something? Actually, you said something already, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, and you know, it was really challenging because I have family members who call me twice, and there's some mini challenging situation going on with my other sibling. And so I'm doing my best to stay focused, but I still had to address the issue. And then my wife went out and her room key wasn't working, so she couldn't get back in. So I had to stop to let her in. So it was a really interesting experience because usually I'll be at home and I won't answer the phone and I don't, you know, and so this was a good experience because I was juggling all these different things and it was challenging.
Okay. All right, BJ, it's your circle.
Oh, okay. So I have to keep time. Bear with me. Timing. Okay, so at this facilitating empathy circle, I will be the facilitator. That means that I'll be keeping track of time and making sure that the process goes as it should. We will have one speaker, and that speaker will speak for 3 minutes. After that, then the speaker will become the listener. During the time that the speaker is speaking, the active listener or other listeners should not interrupt or give their own opinion about what they feel like is being said. Just reflect and restate what they heard the speaker say. So that being said, Edwin, will you be my listener?
You're going to be the first listener, I thought.
I mean, I'm sorry.
So
will you be the first speaker?
I'm glad to speak. Sure. Yeah.
Speaker.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick up on the aspect of why more people aren't like flocking to empathy circles. You know, that's kind of a concern. It's like that. Yeah, my concern is how to get more people really involved in kind of take it seriously and have that same passion and understanding that you do. Yeah.
I think you said that you sense my passion for empathy circles and you're not sure why it's not used by more companies, groups, and organizations, because it's a good thing and that more people should know about it.
Yeah, and I think a part of that is that we need a movement that goes out onto the streets with empathy circles. It's like, you know, that we do have an empathy tent. Lou and I have gone, you know, out and listened to at different demonstrations, but to just demonstrate, and I kind of have this vision of taking the empathy tent to Congress. We have all these people trained in empathy circles and we camp out in front. We say, we want the Democrats and Republicans to do empathy circles and we're not leaving until you do. And we're going on a hunger strike or whatever until you talk to each other.
I think what you said is that this should be going global, which it will, just not right now. And that you feel like you're so passionate about it. You feel like there's an opportunity and there should be a movement like there have been in the past for other organizations who have been successful that are doing what you want to do. And that is maybe to camp out at Congress and get the Democrats, Republicans, and the third party, everybody get together.
I feel fully heard, and I got a lot more to say. My time is up.
I just want to interject. I actually gave you a little bit more time.
How come you're doing the timekeeping? I thought BJ was doing the timekeeping.
It was, but I noticed BJ wasn't keeping the time, and so that's why I gave the time signal.
I see.
As a fellow team member and to assist in the process. I apologize for interjecting the time, BJ. I just thought it was okay to help.
It's okay. I appreciate it.
So, as the facilitator of the breakout, I will say it's not okay to do that. It's her circle and it's her job to manage the time.
Okay. My apologies.
All right. So we'll resume. We're at 1 minute and 54 seconds. Okay, we'll resume 1 minute, 54 seconds. So we can just pick up where we left off if that's okay. Edwin.
Oh, I still had more time?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We're going 3 minutes, right?
You're right. So, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought. It's just that we need some sort of a social action, like to bring the empathy circle, kind of bring it into the national consciousness. Like right now, the national consciousness is, the pundits talking to each other and so forth, but they're not, the empathy, mutual empathy is not part of the national conversation. So it's like, how do we bring it into the national conversation?
What I heard you say, there's a need for empathy circles to be global and to go nationally. And there are several things that you thought of that could happen that could make this a reality. Would be, a global movement similar to what some other orgs do to get the word out and to get the name out.
Yeah, we need high profile people like Oprah or whatever to be doing empathy circles. If Oprah did it on her show, it'd go to, these millions of people, and there's all kinds of, Lady Gaga or whatever, these type of celebrities. If we had them in empathy circles, it's like all their followers say, hey, I want to do that too. So yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said is with Oprah or any other celebrity like Lady Gaga, if they were to come into the fold and learn about empathy circles and put it on their platforms with their millions and billions of listeners and followers, that empathy circle would get the recognition that it deserves. And it will be on a level playing field to where more people would be aware of it.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks.
My apology again.
3 minutes, 49 seconds. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for speaking. So you need to choose our listener.
You were the listener, so you're good.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's a lot. Take your time. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what I can say is that I know you guys were curious about the facilitation circle that happened with my family on Thanksgiving, so I'd like to talk about that a little bit.
BJ, who do you want to be your reflector?
You.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, so it's important to slow down. Okay. Lou, will you be my listener?
Love to.
Okay, so one of the things I like to talk about is a listening circle that took place on Thanksgiving with my family. There were 6 of us. And initially, someone like, what are you talking about? But once I explained the process, we started the process and we got to the one family member, and apparently she's having some issues within her relationship where her career is growing and her husband's career is not growing. So, there was an opportunity to put herself first.
Yeah, so you're describing a little bit more about the empathy circle that you held with your family. And you said that, there were 6 people. And once you explained the process, it kind of got going. And then one of your family members, I can't remember, I think maybe said sister, was having some emotional difficulty because her career is taking off, but her husband's career isn't.
Yeah, so basically with the empathy circle, she was able to see things from more than one perspective.
So the empathy circle really supported her in seeing the situation from more than one perspective.
Yes, so it was a healthy dialogue, not just for her, but for those who were also there listening.
Yeah, so you think she got a lot out of it, and so did others who were present.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing is, I think when it came to race and talking about the recent judge and jury decisions within the Black community, it became a little heated.
Yeah, so something else that was a topic of this empathy circle, it sounds like, was the recent trials and judicial decisions, and it got heated.
Yes, in conversation. So once that person had a shot of Crown, everything was wonderful.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that. You said once a person had a shot of what?
Whiskey.
Oh, yeah. So it got heated, but once that person had something to drink, it calmed down a little bit.
Yes, and things were wonderful. So altogether, I think the empathy circle really that day made everybody feel closer because some of the things that were discussed.
Yeah, so you think the result of participating in the empathy circle was that people felt closer because things got discussed that were important.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay.
So just as a note, there's someone dropped out of one of the other rooms. There's only 2 people, so I'm going to go support them. So
okay.
I think there'll be 3 here, but there's only 2 there, so I'll go there. So
okay.
It's been great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I just saw there's just 2 of you here, so I wanted to join the support to make 3.
Yeah, Trey dropped out. He was just wrapping up his turn and something happened. I'm not sure what, but we thought he'd come back in.
I'm keeping an eye out for him.
Yeah, great. So that was my time. Go ahead and do 3 minutes each now that we have Edwin.
Okay.
So thank you. I feel fully heard, Shauna.
Welcome. All right. So I'm going to ask Edwin.
Listening.
Would you mind being my listener? Okay, thank you. All right. I need to change the time because we're back to the 3 minutes. So, all right. All right. So in reflecting on Kathy's concern for educators and the things that they're called on to do, and at the same time, they are not necessarily appreciated or compensated. It's also one of the reasons I decided to shift career and to, focus on how best I can support teachers.
So you feel that teachers are not well supported, well compensated. So you're working now to see how you can support teachers.
Yes. I mentioned earlier that given the ongoing pandemic and what teachers are called on to do, it also sheds light on the education system and the design that is necessary to meet the needs of the 21st century students.
Yeah, so this pandemic has shed light on education and sort of the needs of in the 21st century, what's needed in education.
Yes, and I truly believe, and this is just my philosophy, that when we redesign teacher education to meet the needs of our children today, then education will be taken seriously. And I say seriously because oftentimes people would want to quit education, or students don't get what they need because we're still using practices that are no longer applicable.
So there's a need for redesigning education to make it really relevant, because right now it's using old processes, and it needs new processes to better address the needs of of everyone.
Yes. We've also have to address the challenges that teachers have because family dynamics are different today. Socializing is different today. And I feel that that's one of the challenges for teachers to become so clinical instead of being people skills that you're no longer really seeing in the classroom.
So it's kind of the structures made it more clinical, that the teachers, it's kind of forcing them to be more clinical instead of really be seen and be more human. And so it sounds like you're really wanting to do something about this, really wanting to address this problem.
Thank you so much, Erin. I feel fully heard.
Okay, and I'll speak to Kathy.
I'm listening.
Yeah, the topic of empathy and education is huge. I would love to see empathy circles as a primary practice, starting even in first grade and going all the way through all the different levels. Just really showing everyone, the students, staff, how to relate more effectively with each other.
Yeah. So you can see empathy starting in first grade and going up through 12th grade, and not only teaching the students that, but the educators too, being a part of that.
Yeah, I think it would be transformative because that we're like, if I would have learned like how to do an empathy circle, how to support others by listening, how to mediate conflict, how to use empathy as sort of a gateway to innovation and creativity, it would have made a huge, benefit in my life if I would have learned that already way back when I was in first grade and in the family as well.
Yeah. So your life would be different if you'd have learned this, like starting in the first grade. You would have had different skills or better skills and been able to mediate conflict, and even it would carry over into the family.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of blocks though of bringing it into the schools because, all the pressures, and I know Bill has been trying to bring it, address empathy in the schools, and it's kind of slow, I don't know how to speed it up, how do we really speed it up to bring these practices into the school?
So there's a sense of urgency for you in getting this practice into the schools, but you notice that there seem to be some barriers into getting it in there.
And I think all sides, conservatives, progressive sides would be able to support it because it's not so much about the issues, but how do we talk about the issues? Sort of the space because everybody gets space to be heard. Conservatives get a space to be heard, the progressives, and it's really about not what the outcome is, but that we are willing to listen to each other. So that I think that's the important, what's kind of missing currently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this isn't something political. It's something everybody can benefit from, no matter, what your political persuasion is. And it's important for us to learn to listen to each other, not necessarily decide on an outcome, but just be heard and hear the other.
Yeah, for example, there's all these demonstrations and conflicts at these school boards, right, where it's about critical race theory, that instead of having it be that structure, with the panel up in front and then everybody kind of just getting a few minutes to speak, it's like divide everyone into empathy circles so that they just listen to each other, have a meeting where everybody's just doing empathy circles to talk out the issue. I think it would totally change the whole dynamic because people just want to feel heard and they just don't feel heard. And if they feel heard, they start calming down, start getting more creative.
Yeah. So you're noticing around the critical race theory issue that the school board meetings are not very productive. People don't really get a chance to be heard, but if there were empathy circles there and everybody got a chance to be heard, it could really change the course narrative.
Yeah, I feel fully heard.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to listen to me, Edwin.
Listening.
Okay. let's see. Yeah, it's very sad, the state of schools, right? I mean, the origin of schools was to train us to be good factory workers, right? And so it's so obsolete, but there are so many things so obsolete right now.
So it's an obsolete school system because it's geared towards training factory workers. So there's a lot of sort of obsolete components to education.
Well, throughout society right now, there's a lot of obsoleteness being observed. I don't know if obsoleteness is a word or not, but so yeah, and critical thinking has fallen by the wayside also, right? And so how did that happen, except that you don't want critical thinkers in a factory?
Yeah, so there's a lot of obsolete throughout the whole culture. And then also your concern about critical thinking is not there. And maybe the reason is because factory workers weren't supposed to be critical thinkers. So it's not really brought into the education or the culture.
Yeah, and if you don't get it in the family, like if your parents don't teach you critical thinking, you're not going to get it anywhere. You certainly aren't going to get it in church if you go to church.
So critical thinking, where are you really taught it? If you're not taught it in the family, where are you going to get it? Not in the church, for example.
Yeah, and I didn't become a critical thinker until college, right? And it wasn't college in my 20s, it was college in my 30s probably, where I really became a critical thinker.
Just have to send this notice out, sorry, just to broadcast to all, closing in 10 minutes. Okay, yeah, so you didn't really start having critical thinking until you went to college. And so kind of where are people supposed to learn it?
Yeah, and it wasn't college in my 20s, it was college in my 30s. In college in my 20s, you know, I was a party girl, didn't even finish college. So no critical thinking there. It wasn't until I finished in my 30s that I got critical thinking.
Yeah, in your 20s at college, it was parties, no critical thinking. And then you went back later in the 30s, when you're in your 30s, then you started learning some critical thinking.
Yeah. And, you know, now that we know the brain isn't even fully developed until our 20s and even later for men than it is for women, you can't really have the full faculties to think critically. So there's that whole issue there, right? I mean, that's another thing that needs to be addressed.
So there's really sort of developmental, you don't really have all your faculties until a later age, especially for men, is even later than for women.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this whole notion of, you know, obsoleteness, I think even the family structures are obsolete, right?
Yeah,
You
so
don't have,
So obsolete throughout the culture, school, family, a lot of obsolete structures.
yeah. Yeah. So did you say time, Shauna?
Yes.
Okay, because I missed.
Okay.
I'm done.
The alarm went off.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I'm done.
I'll speak to you, Shauna.
Yes. Okay.
So a tip is have a good sign for like time. So you look a little shy about saying time. You can't be shy. Yeah. It's like stick it in the front of people. But go ahead if you can reflect that. If you can reflect that.
Yes.
You reflect that.
I will. Thank you so much.
Now, what did I just say? If you'd be willing to reflect what I just said.
So, of course, one of the things that based on what you're saying, appearing, of course, shy or, you know, apprehensive because this, you know, this is a new process. So one way in which I can address that is to have up the word time as a sign or something that indicates. So I could probably use that as a timer, which would help in monitoring the process.
Absolutely. That's exactly, I feel fully heard. I mean, I feel heard on that point. So, yeah, the whole topic of education is so important. It's like, you know, how do we, if we could just bring empathy circles into the education field in a big way, it could be just really transformative.
So what I'm hearing is based on the concerns and also bringing the culture of empathy in the school, because it is something that is transformative. You know, it is one thing that you are thinking about and how best we can actually inculcate, or I would say foster, this type of culture in the school, empathy.
Yeah, and I think it's even more important than critical thinking. Because you need empathy before critical thinking, it seems to me. So people need to feel heard. And when they feel heard, yeah, there's something about it, I think, versus like an argument, like, oh, it's critical, like kind of going for the logic, which is important. But first, people need to feel heard. And once they feel heard, then they're sort of ready for, you know, more critical thinking, it seems to me. So empathy first.
So what I'm hearing is, while you acknowledge that critical thinking is essential, it's fundamental, for that to thrive, empathy would be the first stepping stone, because through empathy, then of course, people will be allowed to have that critical thinking approach. When you're not fully heard, then it's very hard, or it seems difficult to be able to critically analyze anything really.
Yeah, and also sometimes criticism is sort of a manipulative tool, and people feel like they're being manipulated. So they say, okay, if you're going to use this, you know, reason, critical thinking, I'm just going to have conspiracy theories or whatever, and just not going to play your game. So the first step, if we hear each other, then I think we have a foundation for more kind of nuanced thinking, yeah.
Yes, so what I hear you saying is, with critical thinking, and those things tend to be, there's a motive of manipulating. And so because of that type of approach, you know, that can be like and what I hear you saying, that dance between wanting to be fully heard, or is it manipulating that argument? So somehow along the way, sometimes we lose the essence because of trying to prove a point rather than actually exercising empathy. And with that being said,
I feel fully heard. Thank you. Yeah, it was my time. Yay, assertiveness.
Thank you. Okay. So, Kathy.
Yes.
Would you mind?
Why don't we do a 2-minute turn?
2 minutes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So reflecting on what Edwin mentioned, I must agree that there's something that stood out to me when he said, you know, the concept of empathy and critical thinking. And I think you've also mentioned developing critical thinking, because that has fallen along the way.
Yeah. So you're carrying forward this theme of the importance of empathy and critical thinking.
And what stood out to me is that when we lack the practice of empathy, it is so difficult to exercise critical thinking, because if I lack empathy, I can't hear what you're saying. So I'm going to try and manipulate to try and get what I said across to you.
So you also see as empathy is important, because until we're able to listen to somebody, we can't really think critically.
Yes, that's correct. And so, yeah, the essence of empathy in school is fundamental. And like I mentioned, once we get educators in training to understand the power of empathy, and they have that tool with them when they go in the classroom, they are able to inject it without feeling that it's forced upon them, because they understand the concept and how true empathy can go.
So you want teachers to have the experience of how powerful empathy is. That way they're motivated to introduce it. It's not like one more thing they're mandated to do.
That's correct. I feel fully heard. Thank you so much.
Good. So we already debriefed her introduction. She did a really good job. Her educator skills were reflected in that. Really, it was great. So how did you feel about the timing part of it?
Okay, reflecting. Yes, I think the nervousness, for example, showing the card, I don't know if I'll distract the person who is speaking and the one that's listening. So that part is where I need to definitely work on, because I did get apprehensive when Edwin was talking, and for you as well. So I need to definitely work on that. So your feedback, I do welcome.
Yeah. One of the things I learned to say in the beginning is that when time is up and you're speaking, you can still finish your thought.
Okay.
And you still get your reflection.
Okay, got it.
That way, when the time is up, they know they don't have to stop like right then. So that helps, I think, to explain that.
Oh, perfect. Yes. Because I think I wasn't sure. So thank you so much for that. I make note of it. Yes.
Yeah, saying it up front kind of helps, just sets the stage.
Yes. So saying it at the start will definitely, okay.
And you may still need to remind people, but at least, you put it out there.
Yes. Thank you so much.
But excellent job.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's like the timing is sort of for fairness. So if you think, hey, I'm just trying to create a sense of fairness in terms of sort of equal time for everyone, then people respect that. They respect that they want to have a sense of fairness or
equality.
Equality.
Everyone back. Are we all
Melissa?
back? Yes.
Yep. I think we're all here.
Yeah. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good time and learned a lot. And so now I will be calling each participant first, and you will each get 1 minute, about a minute. And we would like to know your experience from what you learned in the breakout room, and one thing that excited you most, and you will be able to, I would like to actually practice before the next session. So I will call out your names, but forgive me if I miss anyone's name. And at the end, if you could please let me know, and you will get a turn to speak. So I will start by calling out your names, and 1 minute each. All right, so let's begin with BJ Glidden.
Okay. Greetings, everyone, again. For me, it was really interesting when it was my opportunity to facilitate. At first, it was a little overwhelming, but I took a couple of deep breaths and slowed down. And it was interesting. Just have to, I feel like I just need to practice more, So it was interesting. I learned a lot. Thank you for the pointers, Lou and Ed and Dwayne. I appreciate it.
Thank you, BJ. Tiffany?
Yes, I learned that when we do our introductions, we can make it interactive. Yeah, Joyce, who was in our group, she did that. And so she asked people what empathy was before she went ahead and told them. And that just made us take more ownership. I thought that was really cool. And I enjoyed Celine and Vera. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Tree.
I think Trey dropped out.
Trey dropped out.
Had
Okay.
connection problems.
Payal? Is Payal there? No. Okay. Jaya?
For
Jaya?
me, I think, yes. For me, I think it was very important the way the facilitator role is very, very organized. And one of the biggest learnings was to be human in this whole process of holding the space. So that was my learning.
Thank you, Jaya. Dwayne?
Excuse me. In the US, in high school, they have what's called advanced placement classes, and that you can get college credit for having a high school class. And so I was in a group with Lou and Edwin. So I felt like I was in an advanced placement class and along also with BJ. And so we had a really great opportunity, and it was a great opportunity for me to continue to learn and grow. I'm reminded that the process is challenging. I'm reminded the importance of being here, being present, being in the now. And I really enjoy this experience. And I'm excited to continue to do this and also to meet more of the people in the group and to work together to bring about positive change in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Gina? Jenna? Is Jenna there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we had a lovely 3-person, 4-role group, and my experience was that people are very kind and patient, and I was better with the timer. I found an online timer. Your advice was helpful, and I need to practice it more, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jenna. Laura? Laura? No. All right. Floyd?
I really enjoyed the group. I'm a little nervous. This is actually my fifth ever Empathy Circle. So I jumped from a newbie to facilitating. It was quite the experience, and I really appreciate my group participation, my leader, and everyone's compassion that we all got through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Floyd. Anjali?
Yeah,
Yes, Anjali.
yeah, our group had 3 people, and I think it went well. One thing that I recognized was that issues with connection or technology were actually connecting factors. So anything that brings people together that can be useful in empathy circles as well. And I think it's more about the communication rather than the content. So that is something that I learned, and that was useful for me. One thing that I need to work on is remembering, these steps of, how to facilitate. So I think I'll become better at that over time. So really remembering, how to introduce an empathy circle, how I'm supposed to show time and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Anjali. Johnny? Is Johnny?
Yeah. One of the things that I learned today is that I think this training, along with my other training, would blend well together. Primarily, I was a psychology student. And my major study was conflict resolution, and I'm seeing how much empathy has to do with that, and can have to do with solving those types of problems. So,
Thank you, Johnny. Jeng. Jeng.
I have a lovely time with my group now. We got like some funny conversation, and as a facilitator, I think it will help if I next time I do a little note, for what that I need to say to advise to people, so I don't forget. Yes, what that I have to say. So yes, was good.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeng. Karan. Karan. Okay. Kevin.
For me, the process is really great. As a facilitator, it definitely prepares you to make sure you stay present. I definitely learned some more techniques in reference to explaining the why and the how, in reference to who's first, who's second, listener, speaker, so forth, to be very detailed about that. So it was very helpful, and the group was awesome in reference to the organic flow of information that still came out of each of us as we facilitated.
Thank you, Kevin. Dina.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. So I've learned a lot because I felt like since it was 2 trainers in there, I just jumped right in, didn't explain anything. And so I just learned that I need to do that regardless of who's in the room. I need to set it up just like they're just brand new people, learning how to show time, and then also letting the participants share a little bit about themselves in the smaller group before we just dive right in. So it was fun. Melissa and Michelle are very gracious to me, and since I dove right in, we had lots of time to go around and round and round. So the more the merrier, the more the better. So I just still think about how I can use this in the things I'm already involved in, especially doing anger management or domestic violence groups. And I think one day this will be mandated for domestic violence and anger management offenders because it's free. And it can be a pre-course for them having to go into a BIP class and having to pay weekly. So I'm excited. I'm excited. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Krista.
We had a lovely 3-person group, gave lots of space to just be where I was at, wasn't feeling too ready, but that reminded me of the balance between that preparedness that people are talking about. I do want to write a better cheat sheet for myself with a little more detail about how to be an empathetic speaker and an empathetic listener. I think that was a learning I had. And yeah, the flow was really beautiful. I feel humbled and gifted by Jana and Larry having time with you. So thank you for that. I have one small question to the world about, as a visual learner, I wonder about putting the roles or the rules somehow in the chat for the breakout room for my, if I were to be facilitating, just because I get flummoxed and need something to refer to. So just a thought, but thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Sarika.
Hi, I really enjoyed the process today. I was in a room with Anne and Deidre, and they were really gracious. I definitely started off feeling a little bit anxious and nervous coming back in after having missed the first session, and it had been a few weeks since the cafes. So it was great being able to actually practice the process. So I definitely enjoyed today's process.
Thank you, Sarika. Shauna.
Hi, thank you, Melissa. This has been a very good experience. Thanks to Kathy creating that space of patience. It was two of us, one got dropped out, but it really fostered that opportunity practicing as a facilitator to be, comfortable. And as someone mentioned, being human in the first try. And what I liked the feedback is there's how powerful it is to establish some things at the beginning really helps when you are having an empathy circle. And that's one thing I learned was, for example, time, because I was apprehensive, didn't want to show anyone that their time. But establishing this at the initial stage and then throughout can be really beneficial to that group. And so it has been a great experience, practicing facilitating today. So thank you so much. And to Larry, sorry, not Larry, Edwin and Kathy. That pressure was on, but it was good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shauna. Deirdre? Deirdre?
I'm here and I'm grateful. And Sarika already mentioned that Anne was our trainer. But the thing that's alive for me right now is how important it was to name our anxieties about this process. Because what I noticed is that we were feeling it, and as we expressed it, it dissipated, and we moved on to why this is so valuable and how important it is as a human being. And just, we all need to practice this skill, but we can start holding space for people as a civic responsibility. But it was really important to have an opportunity to name it. Thanks.
Thank you, Deirdre. Vera?
I thought this was such an awesome and educational experience. I want to thank Celine, Tiffany, and Joyce. It was just really cool to see two other people practice their intros, because for me, I was like, oh my gosh, like I learned so much from each of them and the differences in each of their, like they're both so awesome. And I've learned from both of those intros, and I'm going to definitely incorporate what I heard from their intros into my intro as well. And I just think this is such a excellent experience to practice, because for me, I felt like, oh my gosh, it seems so easy and simple, when you all are doing it. I mean, every facilitator I've had, I mean, it just seems so excellent, and for when I was doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much to remember, so it was harder than I thought, but it was really great to have this practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vera. Joyce?
Yeah, I would go ahead and go what Vera said. I was able to learn so much from everyone in our little group. I was also very lucky. I went last, so I got to watch Vera and Tiffany give their intros, and I felt like I was able to get so much just from seeing the warmth and energy that they were bringing to their facilitation. And so that's definitely something that I want to try to incorporate into my empathy circles in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Did I miss any participants? If I did, would you please raise your hand and speak? No? All right. So maybe we can go to the trainees next. Celine?
I think it's over to me.
Oh yeah. Okay. No, we're not doing the. Okay.
Closing.
So back to you, closing. All right, Kathy. Thank you.
So are there any final comments from any of the trainers?
Well, I have something to say. I just want to share some language I heard in the circle that I think is very useful. One was let go of the desire to ask questions or give advice. I just thought that was such a friendly way of saying it. And then also that empathy is something you can develop and practice like any other skills. To me, that makes it all very available. So I wanted to share that with everybody. Thank you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Celine. All right, well, let's review what we did today. We practiced introducing the Empathy Circle process by giving instructions on how to participate. Everyone who wanted to practice facilitating a short empathy circle. And then we debriefed your experience at the end of the empathy circle so you could learn from that. So what's coming up next week, session 3, we'll practice facilitating again. But next week, you'll also be able to decide whether to have some challenges from the facilitator, the trainer in your circle. And it's a go at your own pace challenges. So you can pick no challenge, an easy challenge, or a harder challenge. Your trainer will not give you any more challenges than you want. So assignments for next week, an email will go out, but just a reminder to fill out the session feedback survey. The link is in the chat if you want to do it now. You'll have your empathy buddy call. You'll be paired up with somebody different this time. So remember to look for that email and contact them as soon as possible so that you don't run out of time. And then try to facilitate an empathy circle with family or friends to get more practice. And so if you want to post one feeling that you have now as a result of being here today. It looks like we're a little bit early, Edwin. Anything you want to do in the next few minutes?
I don't have anything unless the other trainers have any comments.
Okay.
Looks like not. So close a little early.
Appreciation, joy, grateful, well satisfied, beneficial, optimistic, peace, purposeful, joy, openness, heard, all things we have in our lives all the time. So jazz hands.
And there's the feedback forms there in the and you can fill that out, add any questions. And if the facilitators and the trainees would stay back, we'll have a debrief for that.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week. See you in your empathy buddy calls.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we take Michelle. You were going to do on the debrief. I forgot to mention that before. Do you feel ready for that?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, no problem. Cool. Yeah. Well, should we 3 minutes bio break?
Sounds good.
See you in 3 minutes.
So Tiffany, you had asked the question. It wasn't. I don't think it was answered at the beginning. Well, can you restate the question again? I want to be sure that got addressed.
Yes. Sorry if I missed it.
You're muted. There you go.
Sure. Thank you. So I've been in small breakout rooms before when you had participants that kept apologizing a lot because they weren't fully present. And I was just wondering, for one, how to make them feel better, because when your kids are making noises and all this stuff and your mind is going, you're not really listening to the other person. Let's be honest. And so what can trainers say or do to make them feel more inclusive, I've been in a breakout room also. Well, let me just pause there.
You want to jump into that, Anne, or you gotta?
Well, in the example you gave, Tiffany, I think if someone is parenting or looking after other people in the background, and the chances are they have to do it, they need to do it. Maybe to acknowledge that they are, they're in a more difficult position. So to ascertain when it would be good for them and let them have their turn when they know they're most likely to be able to fully participate. And it could be someone knows that their child might wake up in half an hour or whatever, but to invite them to say how it would work best for them, and to have, so to try to fit with them a little bit. Does that make sense?